Good afternoon also from my side. We are going to travel a little bit from Nepal to Mozambique. My name is Corinna Kreidler. I'm a consultant, but I was the team leader for the DFID cyclone response in Mozambique over the last 6 months. And I want to share some experience from there. I'm talking in my personal capacity, not on DFID's behalf. The title of my story is Two Cyclones, a Comb and a Brush. What on earth is this story about? Well, it's not about hairdressing, because I assume you would have challenged the relevance of that topic. It's about what happens when policy commitments get confronted with financing patterns. And I'm going to talk about how I felt when I was tasked by DFID to translate policy commitments into grant agreements. I'm going to talk about two cyclones. I'll identify two trends, drawing one conclusion, and I'll end with 5 comments. The first cyclone hit Mozambique mid-March, and we are seeing on the picture the remains of a house in the central city of Beira. Who might have lived there? Maybe a grandmother with her 5 grandchildren? What are their needs and priorities beyond shelter? Would they prefer cash or in-kind assistance? How can we involve them meaningfully in the design of the response? While we were still figuring out the answers to those questions, and many others, a second cyclone hit. In the north, mostly rural coastal areas. Very obviously, fishermen got affected, losing their equipment and thus their livelihoods. But what about the women who used to sell the fish on the market? And where are the kids? How can we get them back to school? Very visibly, all the houses are gone. How are we going to build them back better and safer? And who and where are the local responders that we could support? This brainstorming shows the first trend. In order to improve relevance, we have committed to a number of policy topics and have high expectations towards a response to put all of them into practice. A response has to be inclusive, consider the needs, capacities, and priorities of people of all ages. It has to be gender sensitive, nothing new there, but still a long way to go. It should be as locally led as possible. We should use cash whenever possible. We want to engage with local communities in a meaningful way and be accountable to them. We want to be climate smart. We should be innovative. We have to think about the nexus and never forget the new ways of working. You see, the list has grown very long, and mine wasn't even exhaustive yet. Has it grown too long? Don't get me wrong. We have committed to all of these topics for a very good reason, and every single one of them is important to make a response more relevant. However, collectively, they result in a policy overload, and they are risking to defeat even the best-intentioned practitioner. And believe me, I had the best intentions working there in the cyclone response, and I did feel overwhelmed. Why? Because there's no sense of priority whatsoever, and there's the second trend, which is reducing the transaction costs for donor administrations by reducing the number of grant agreements, at the same time as increasing the requirements for compliance with donor regulations, and thus increasing the administrative burden for the recipients of funding. And in practice, this second trend means that only the biggest organizations, mostly UN and a few big Western INGOs, have the capacity, or are thought to have the capacity, to absorb these large amounts of money. Looking at these two trends, my conclusion is they are mutually exclusive. While we are using a very fine comb to look at our policy commitments, nuancing very carefully between contexts, actors, needs. This would call for also very granular funding patterns to a large diversity of actors. But instead, We are using an ever broader brush to finance humanitarian action on the ground, lumping together big amounts of money for a very selected, reduced number of grant recipients. And as a result, the policy gets stuck in the financing brush. So what to do? I don't have the answer. I haven't found it in Mozambique. I have 5 comments to make, and please grab me over coffee if you would like to discuss them. Number 1, stop developing more policy guidance and more tools. We are already drowning in policy papers. How to put policy into practice is the real question. 2, don't tell me mainstreaming is the solution. It is not. Looking at how much, or rather how little, we have achieved after 25 years of gender mainstreaming, for me is enough of a proof that it is an excuse or a fig leaf. 3, stop paying lip service, pretending that every single policy commitment has the same importance, and we are going to implement each of them one by one by one by one. I'm sure we will not, because we cannot, given the current circumstances. So what else can we do? My 4th comment. One option is that we are going to start a very honest and certainly very painful discussion about which policy commitment is more important than another. We agree on a limited number with some order of priority so that we stand a realistic chance to make some bold change on this restricted list. And my final comment, we find ways to substantially change the financing patterns and to stop this trend towards ever fewer grant agreements. I know, both of these are hairy discussions, no doubt about that. But we need to start them, we need to have them, we need to make progress and find a solution, because we cannot simply accept that the policy remains stuck in the financing brush. Thank you.